What's up, guys? Now, the fight has ended. The UFC has postponed the next 3 fight night events due to the president saying that the events cannot hold more than 10 people in the same room, which is pretty much impossible, right? And the cards are Tyron Woodley versus Leon Edwards in London is getting postponed. Francis Ngannou versus Jairzinho Rozenstruik is going to be postponed. And Alistair Overeem versus Walt Harris. Those cards are just not going to happen, or they're going to happen at another date. The thing is, though, one UFC fight out of all of these cards is actually still going to happen. Apparently, and that is going to be John Phillips versus Dusko Todorovic. And that's going to happen in Cage Warriors. So those are two UFC fighters. It turns out that Dana White is allowing them to fight on the Cage Warriors card this Friday. Well, with no UFC cards for the next 3 weeks, I'm going to be tuning into Cage Warriors. And one of those fighters, Dusko Todorovic, is actually one of the most sought out MMA prospects in my opinion. And to be honest, this is just really good for Cage Warriors and other smaller organizations. And that's a pretty rare thing to do for the UFC, to actually help out another organization and not really get anything in return, maybe just some publicity from one of those two UFC fighters when they come back. And I hope that's the sacrifice needed to make the Khabib and Tony fight happen. Ship them to the moon, wherever you gotta put it underwater, ask Greg Hardy for some oxygen tanks, whatever you gotta do, man. Or we can give them both some VR goggles and have them go at it virtually. 3 cards went away. Is that enough? Is that enough of a sacrifice? They could take out the whole UFC 249 card and just leave Tony and Khabib. I'm all in for it. I'm still happy. But the major question is the Khabib and Tony fight happening? We don't know. Dana White has said on the record that the fight is going to happen. They have like a month to prepare for it. And he said that it might not happen in the United States. It might happen in some other country. We know Saudi Arabia really wants Khabib to fight there. And if I'm not wrong, the coronavirus is not spreading too much over there, with a total of 118 cases, which is significantly less than the United States right now. So hopefully they can do something like that, but you have to give credit to Dana White. I praise the guy. He's a legend, man. He tried to fight through all of this, but ultimately it was the president's decision that defeated Dana White pretty much. He was actually going to move him on an Indian reserve in Oklahoma City. That's how far Dana White was going to take this just to have the fights go on. And a lot of people are trying to say, Dana White's being greedy, the UFC's being greedy, but now obviously they want the fights to go on because yes, they do make money from it. But as far as going to putting on Indian reserves, grabbing fights that were canceled and putting them on smaller organizations just so those fighters can make a living, just so they can put food on their family's table, all that sort of stuff, that is something you have to commend the UFC about, and especially Dana White. I mean, they were scrambling this week for the London card because obviously the UK fighters couldn't come over to the United States when they were looking to move the card over. And they were looking for many fights for Tyron Woodley. I mean, they were looking for RDA. Colby Covington wanted to get in there. Gilbert Burns wanted to get in there. And Gilbert Burns just fought Damian Maia a couple days ago, Allegedly, Tyron Woodley turned down Gilbert Burns, and RDA was really sought after. Everybody wanted to see the Colby Covington fight, and I do feel bad for the fighters that had to travel over, train for the fights, all for nothing pretty much. And hopefully they get paid, maybe their show money at least, And man, the MMA media, like the past 2 weeks, has been very negative about everything. And really fear-mongering this whole thing. I mean, on Twitter, I see the MMA journalists tweeting more about the coronavirus than their own sport that they cover. It's crazy. Like, I'm talking about like 20 tweets in one day about the coronavirus when you usually only get like 1 or 2 MMA tweets daily. You know what I'm saying? It's just crazy how the MMA media has become health officials all of a sudden. I understand it's with good intentions, but to a point it becomes senseless. I mean, to keep repeating what people should be doing, what the UFC should be doing, what fighters should be doing, at the end of the day it's going to fall on deaf ears because most people understand what's important. They don't need a drill sergeant to keep reminding them. I don't need MMA journalists to keep repeating what Dr. Anthony Fauci has said. Like, we get it. We all heard of what we have to do. At the end of the day, most people just want to watch the fights because there's nothing else going on. MMA is one of the only sports that actually was going on. And that's a big opportunity for the UFC as well. I mean, baseball, basketball, football, whatever, soccer, I don't know how many of them were actually getting canceled, but I saw a lot of the leagues not happening for their respective seasons. And through these times, people want something to watch. People want some kind of entertainment, some kind of enjoyment, some kind of sport to enjoy. And the UFC organization was one that a lot of people wanted to watch and keep on going. While they pretty much hoard in everything they bought at the supermarket for one day, all the toilet paper and hand sanitizers, all that stuff, and they're going to just sit home for however long. But at least they got the UFC to watch. That's what most people are thinking. right? Obviously, you got people on Twitter with really big voices and want to give their opinions to everybody, but at the end of the day, most people are not paying attention to that. A lot of them understand the generality of what's going on and what they got to do through these kind of times. And it's very easy for people to sit back and say what the UFC has to do, what the fighters have to do, what's right, what's important, and what's virtuous. It's very, very easy to do that on the sidelines. When ultimately, there are fighters that are going through much more difficult things than just the coronavirus, right? A lot of fighters do not have enough money to just take off for a couple months, especially coming off a training camp that they gotta pay for now, and just sit back like everybody wants them to do. We all understand that people with poor immune systems are the ones that are in great risk of danger from the coronavirus, obviously, right? And the main concern that everybody knows, you don't have to keep mentioning it, the main concern is spreading that virus to those people because their bodies cannot fight it like a younger, healthy human being can, right? Especially athletes, maybe athletes don't feel the coronavirus. They don't feel the symptoms if they have it, but if they go and pass it on to their grandmother, then things can turn really south. We all understand that. But again, it's a hard decision for some fighters, right? Some fighters may not be able to pay their rent at all. They might have a family and they're depending on this next fight alone. Imagine some of those fighters that just got into the UFC. How many of them are stable and now they pay for their training camp? They got to pay their coaches and sparring partners and all those people, and they're not getting paid at the end of the day. Now, a lot of people are going to turn to the UFC and say it's their fault for not paying the fighters and compensating, if in fact they aren't compensating. But if it turns out that they're not paying the fighters after all this, they are in fault, but the people that are trying to virtue signal this whole thing are also not in the right as well. Now, I'm not saying what's the right decision or what's the wrong decision, and that's why I differ from a lot of those people that voice these opinions. I'm just saying it's very easy to go and tell people what they got to do when you don't understand the circumstances and the situations of some of those people. I mean, for an example, a lot of places are shutting down, which is postponing a lot of jobs, right? But the jobs that are not postponed, those people are still going to go out there and work. It's the same thing. I know some people are going to go on and say that those places should be shut down as well. Some places cannot be shut down. For an example, can you shut down every market in the United States, let's say? Can you actually go and do that? You actually cause more harm to everybody than good. So if you're going to have to keep all the markets open because people have to eat, obviously, from somewhere, someone has to go out there and work. But the whole argument is they shouldn't be work because they could potentially get the coronavirus and then possibly pass the coronavirus to someone who can't fight off the virus. I mean, for an example, my mother is over 60 years old, right? And she's able to still go out and work because her place is not shut down. She goes out and still goes to work because she has to. Again, it's very easy to sit comfortably and tell everybody, don't work, everything has to be shut down. It's safer for everybody to do that when you don't take in consideration a lot of the other circumstances and situations of other people, because everybody doesn't live the same way. Not everybody has the same kind of thing going on. And for some people, even these fighters, going out there and fighting, depending on your next check, is probably more important to them than maybe getting the coronavirus and maybe then after spreading it to someone else that can't fight it off. I mean, I'm pretty sure a lot of people during these times, until some kind of vaccination comes out or something that can deal with the virus, are not going to just go out and start hugging and kissing all the old people in the world. You know what I'm saying? I'm pretty sure most people are taking precaution to maybe even the point of not even having any physical contact with anybody over 65 years old. So yes, I do understand the concern and the intentions. The intentions are good from one perspective when you're not looking at the broad spectrum of it. But when you take in consideration all different situations and possibilities, you shouldn't be telling people what to do, right? Just leave that to the experts and leave it to maybe the president of the United States or whoever's in charge, whoever knows more, who has the information at hand. Those are the people that should be advising others of what to do. Now, some people are going to say, didn't you just say we should praise Dana White and UFC for trying to put the fights on? I'm not saying that's right or wrong. I'm just saying I wanted to see some fights. You know, at the end of the day, that's what I want. I mean, telling me that Tyron Woodley and Leon Edwards is not going to happen. Tell me Francis Ngannou and Jairzinho Rozenstruik is not going to happen in an empty arena. And an empty arena makes it a way better fight. Also, Alistair Overeem versus Walt Harris and all the fights under those, you know? I just want to see some fights, just like most of the MMA fans during this whole thing. I don't need the flu and coronavirus comparison saying that the coronavirus is worse. I love to debate that sort of thing because I do think it's a bit of a flawed argument when you talk about the breakout of a certain virus compared to the current numbers of a virus that has gone on for over 100 years. When you look at just the breakout of each virus, now they don't even compare. The flu obviously had way more dangerous and alarming numbers than the coronavirus, but that's not even that important because we do have the vaccination for the flu when we don't have it for the coronavirus. Now, I know a lot of people are going to say that I might be downplaying the coronavirus, but I am not. I understand the risks of it. I mean, personally, I barely even have left my house. I left my house once today just to go run outside because the gyms are closed. And I've been washing my hands like a madman, you know what I'm saying? So I understand the risks. But again, the only thing I don't like is the whole fear-mongering thing and the whole annoyance of virtue signaling this whole thing. So leave in comments below what you guys think about all this. You know, I do like some debate. I do like some discussion. And especially because, you know, we're not going to have any UFC events for a while now. I'm looking forward to it, you know. And I'll see you guys in the next video.